All right, my name is Jared Evanson, and welcome to the Fund It podcast. I'm going to dive right into things, but I'm seeing in my video screen here that we have a special guest, unexpected, Miss Molly, my co host, sleeping in the background here. So, for those of you dog lovers, you are welcome. Now, I want to just jump right into a conversation that I was having today with someone who is new to me in the company or in our division. I actually just switched my team in the division we were in within Cross Country Mortgage to what's called the Summit Group. So Cross Country Mortgage just bought Summit Funding, and I've always been very, very inspired about the things that they were doing over at Summit Funding. In fact, I tried to go work for them before I came to Cross Country Mortgage, and something really, really weird happened. I thought I was being recruited by them, but I was being recruited by some other Summit company, and needless to say, I ended up at Cross Country Mortgage, where it turns out I would have ended up at anyways because we just they were just purchased by Cross Country Mortgage, and the whole leadership team from there is coming over here, and it's really, really exciting. I aligned me and my loan officers up with them, and so today I had the opportunity to talking to their divisional vice president, very deep under the operations side of things. Her name's Sherry, total boss lady. Like, if you ever get a chance to work with her, if you ever join our group or you are in our group, you are very lucky. She is the bomb.com, as they like to say. But we started talking about this like really difficult transaction that I'm working on right now, just kind of randomly. And it's one of those files where you just want to point your fingers at all the things going wrong. In this case for me, it's the clients are a headache. And you know the type of files, though. Someone's going to blame a processor, they're going to blame an underwriter. Everybody feels like there should be somebody to blame, but quite frankly, having somebody to blame doesn't make anything better. We still need to create solutions and solve problems. And as we were talking about this, it kind of drifted into a completely different topic, and it was the topic of extreme ownership, and specifically how I had learned over the years to really stop focusing on what somebody else should have done better and instead focusing on exactly what I could have done better. And that conversation, it led me to a very defining moment in my career. If you knew me, 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago, um, creating or extreme ownership wasn't exactly a specialty of mine. I was what you would call a very ambitious, I was very competitive loan officer. I was driven, or as a lot of people that knew me and worked with me, they might have just defined it as like a bull in a china shop instead. You know the type, something went wrong on a loan file. I was very quick to identify who was responsible: the processor, the underwriter, the closer, um, somebody's manager. It was usually somebody in operations. It could have been the real estate agent. It could have been the client. But I'll tell you whose fault it wasn't. It wasn't mine. That's what I thought. And then one day somebody had had enough. Uh, Her name was Andrina Vogt. She pulled me into her office, and at the time, Andrina, and bless her heart for doing this, but she was our operations leader, I think team lead or something. And since then, she's gone on to do amazing things in her banking career. It's really, really fun to watch her journey. But what I remembered most about when she pulled me into her office is I thought I was in trouble, but this wasn't a scolding. She wasn't going to yell at me. She wasn't going to lecture me. She wasn't angry. She should have been. But what she did was she just simply challenged me to try something different. It was something along the lines of, Jared, what if instead of throwing everybody around here in this whole building under the bus when something goes wrong for you, you start having their back? And I was like, huh? You know, take responsibility for the things you can control. Maybe bring a coffee once in a while, show some appreciation. Everybody loves snacks. Become the favorite loan officer and sit back and watch what happens. I remember thinking about that. And as I was thinking about that, oddly enough, it reminded me of something that I actually taught the kids that I coached baseball for. I was a volunteer coach at the time. And there's this young pitcher, this young kid that I coached. He had a big arm, extremely talented, great athlete, came from a fantastic family. He had all the tools, but he had one problem. We'll say he was emotional, maybe is the right term, and coaches could not figure out how to get him under control. You know, if he doesn't like the call that an umpire made, everybody knew about it. Everybody. He struck out looking, he thought it was a ball. You're going to hear. If a strike wasn't called when he pitched, you knew it. He didn't like it, you knew it. He was always barking at the umpire. And so then one day I challenged him. I got this idea. I said, hey, what if you became the umpire's favorite player? And he looked at me like I was crazy. I said, hey, go up and shake that umpire's hand before the game. Tell him your name and just say, hey, I look forward to working with you today. And I was very deliberate about the word, I look forward to working with you today. Why? Because if you're working with the umpire, you're on the same team. You're trying to get strikes. You're trying to get this game over. Now, before anybody gets upset, I am not suggesting that umpires have favorite players. I'm not. But let's be honest. Like, if you know baseball, just like the mortgage business, it's not always black and white. A lot of balls and strikes, they live in the gray area, just like underwriting guidelines. And if an umpire has developed some sort of negative feelings towards you because you spent the first 3 innings of the game complaining about that gray area, that's not going to work in your favor. And if you spent those 3 innings, but on the other side, if you spent those same 3 innings showing respect and gratitude and just having this great attitude, but the pitcher on the other team, they're acting a fool, that gray area, it's going to start working a lot differently for you. This happens with underwriters. I'm going to tell you this right now, loan officers, this happens with underwriters. But right then when I started giving that kid that lesson, it clicked with him. He understood exactly what I was saying. And at the same time that Andrina was telling me the same thing, it clicked with me too, because I realized I had been treating my operations team the same way that he was treating umpires. Every mistake became an opportunity to assign blame. Every problem was somebody else's fault. Every challenge became an excuse. I mean, and after my conversation with Andrina that day, I made this commitment. No more blaming. No more blaming processors. It's not the underwriter who's just following guidelines' fault anymore. I'm not going to blame a closer or someone in the disclosure team who didn't send something out. It's not a manager's fault who didn't approve something. I was changing my expectations. Now, I wasn't perfect because I've been pretty hard on a few underwriters, especially back at my days working at a bank about 6 years ago. And, I mean, they deserved it, but I wasn't pointing blame to other people. But in reality, my mindset changed, and something amazing happened. And it happened, like, it took a few weeks. The team started making less mistakes. My files, they got picked up first. People wanted to work on my loans. If there was a problem, they got solved pretty quick. When something went wrong, people wanted to help me fix it. And the same thing happened outside of my office too. It happened with realtors. You see, instead of saying, hey, my processor didn't order this verification, or the underwriter is not giving me the income that I need, blaming people, I started saying things along the lines of, I should have caught this sooner. Or I would say something like, I probably could have communicated what I was trying to accomplish with the underwriter a little bit better. Instead of trying to make them guess, I should have just made them understand what I wanted. Or I started saying, I should have asked for this sooner. And then I'd immediately follow up with a solution. No excuses. No finger pointing. Just ownership and a plan. That's the 2 things you need. You want to guess what happened? People started responding completely differently. Because when you're just making excuses all the time, people see right through that. Everybody can see right through that. You see people, they don't want explanations. They just want solutions. And like today on my team, we actually have this rule. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is allowed to say that was my fault. That was my fault is not a vocabulary or a phrase we're allowed to say unless you are me, right? The leader. Because as the leader, ultimately, everything that happens, everything, it's my responsibility, right? Could I have trained better? Could I have communicated what I wanted to happen better with the team or the client? Should I have set better expectations? Was my follow-up not good enough? Could I have created a better process, or better yet, noticed when we were falling outside of the process? I should have brought us back in, right? Almost every single time that's a yes. And when you start viewing things through that lens, something very powerful happens. You see, your team starts taking ownership too. And they're not doing it because you're forcing them to or because you're telling them to. They're doing it because that's exactly what you're doing. You are modeling it. You're creating this culture where people feel supported instead of feeling attacked, where mistakes will become a lesson instead of a public execution of, you did this. People are going to start focusing on solving problems instead of assigning blame, just like I used to do. Because just like baseball, mistakes are going to happen in the mortgage business, right? A bad pitch gets thrown, ground ball gets booted, a guideline gets missed as a loan officer, an error gets made. The best players, the best loan officers, they do not spend the next inning dwelling on the mistake from the past. They don't. You got to have a short memory. And you just fix the problem. You move on. You focus on that next pitch. That's a lesson that I learned from baseball. It's a lesson that I learned from Andrina that day, 12, 13 years ago. And it is a lesson that has served me ever since I learned it. Become the favorite. Have everybody's back. Everybody's back. Take ownership. And watch what happens next. So, if you enjoyed today's episode with me and my co-host back here, Molly, be sure to subscribe, follow along, share with somebody who probably could use this message, because if you're in the real estate business or you're a loan officer, you probably know somebody who is that bull in a china shop. Let's get the message out. Let's make everyone better. Let's win. Let's fund it. Thanks for joining me.